All right. Welcome everybody. I think everybody's on. I don't see Joel, but
I'm here now.
He's signing on just right on time. So this is the Tuesday, February 1st, 2022 special board meeting of the Des Moines Waterworks Board of Trustees. And we're gathering again to talk about and look at regionalization. I'm looking at our guests here, and I noticed our colleague from Urbandale, Pat Bodie, is joining us today. We don't intend to conduct or to take any action at this meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to is one in a series of meetings we've had to review potential 28E for regionalization. And I'll look for a motion to go into this, and then I can see if there's any comments either from the board or anyone present. But I'm looking for a motion. Go ahead.
Ma'am, could I offer one thought here? We did have an item on the agenda today to discuss the public relations plan.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We have Melissa here to present that.
I'm sorry, I forgot what we were doing. I was looking at the wrong agenda. I'll turn it over to you. I don't know, or I guess that's part of the planning meeting, right?
Well, we put it on as an agenda item for the board meeting.
For this meeting? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
well, I'll turn it over to you and Melissa.
Thank you. We have had quite a bit of discussion, Graham, as you know, about ensuring that we provide opportunity for public input and public education on the regionalization process. And in the spirit of ensuring that we get the word out and have the opportunity for public input, we have put together a kind of a plan. And I would say that it's kind of two lanes here for this plan. One is specific to Des Moines Waterworks and our retail customers, and making sure that they have the opportunity to understand how regionalization applies to them. And then there's a broader sort of a regional PR campaign that we're planning to undertake more as a joint effort with Urbandale and West Des Moines and possibly others. But today, our primary focus will be on what I would call the retail PR plan. Melissa is going to take a few minutes and walk us through what we're thinking there in terms of the tactics we plan to use. Maybe comment just briefly on where we are with the more regional approach, and then see if the board has any feedback. So Melissa, I'm going to let you take it from there.
Thanks, Ted. And I think Michelle is going to share the screen, please. Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Ted, and thanks everyone for allowing me to present here today. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for allowing me to present the internal communications plan for regionalization and development of Central Iowa Waterworks, and specifically how this affects Des Moines Waterworks and its customers. Had mentioned retail customers, but also going to talk a little bit about employees as well, because they're an important part of this. This plan has been developed and fine-tuned over the course of the past 12 months as regionalization talks have progressed among the three utilities: Des Moines Waterworks, West Des Moines Waterworks, and the Urbandale Water Utility. And in development of this plan, it's important to note that it is a layered plan, a plan that targets multiple areas, multiple audiences of the public, internal as well as external. And we've devised tactics and approaches. We try to consider all audiences in the development of this plan that CIWW could affect, from employees to retail customers, even a little bit about suburban partners, wholesale customers as well. Also important to note that this plan will be dynamic. There will be moving parts because there will be some audiences that we won't have control over, suburban partners, what they decide to do, media, for example. So we focus a lot of our efforts on the audiences that we can control, our own social media, website, newsletters, some open houses that Des Moines Waterworks will host, talking points, etc. Michelle, we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. I think it's important to know the why behind a communication strategy. And in this case, regionalization will affect hundreds of thousands of people, thousands of employees once it's all said and done, really the entire metropolitan area. So we want to have a strategic plan for how we communicate this information. And having the plan will ensure a couple of different things. First of all, that we have a consistent message, which is important. We'll be able to build some regional support for formation of CIWW, educate the public about it, and then of course, share Des Moines Waterworks viewpoints and message. And that's important to ensuring that that information is accurate. Next slide, please. So what is our main message? That's kind of the hallmark of this plan that leads and guides all of our decision making, and that is that better is together. Better together is the foundation of our messaging. And that message, though tailored, is what will be communicated to all audiences. And we have kind of three main things that we'll be talking about, and that's been talked about thus far. And those three main points regarding regionalization and development of CIWW are management of our precious water resource, fairness and equity and financial equality for all partners, a resilient regional system where all plants feed into the same system to help in the face of climate change, drought, flooding, water quality challenges that we know that we face. Next slide, please. And part of the intention behind a communications plan is to be proactive. And so we've developed a series of talking points geared toward various audiences in preparation for potential questions. And these talking points, just as an example, we provided some for customer service call center staff with basic information about regionalization, just in case they get any calls from the public that could happen in response to media reports or even board of trustee meetings or actions. And because this affects people internally as well as externally and different customer bases differently, there's talking points tailored to those audiences as well. So whether that be staff talking to them, board of trustees, when the time comes, if you are to do interviews, we have some talking points for those as well. You know, for example, if Ted is giving a presentation to, for example, the Greater Des Moines Partnership, he may be speaking more regionally about the effects and benefits of regionalization versus to a group of Des Moines residents at the local library branch or community center who really just want to know where are they going to go to pay their bill. Next slide, please. And so as mentioned, this is a layered communications plan. And in the development of it, we consider audiences and how we could reach those specific individuals. So this includes both internal as well as external audiences, as well as retail customers and some outreach to wholesale along with controlled messaging opportunities. So first and foremost, the website. If you have been on it lately, you know that on the homepage under latest news, there's now a section called Regional Water. If you click on it, it provides links to articles, written pieces, and other information about Central Iowa Waterworks and board action. In the H2O line, the January-February issue, the print issue, along with the email that just went out in mid-January, there was an extensive FAQ about regionalization. And as we receive questions or there's updates and the opportunity to provide more information to the public, we'll continue to use that particular newsletter to publish those FAQs each issue. If there would be interest in bill stuffers, we can certainly include those within the bills, whether that be FAQs or other information. Within the Spigot, which is our employee newsletter, a portion of the FAQ that ran in the H2O line ran in the January issue of the Spigot. I have been working with employees to inquire about the questions that they have about regionalization. And so starting with the February issue, which comes out this week, there will be a questions about regionalization corner in which there are questions and answers that I receive. So employees will be able to submit those in the months to come and get some answers to those if they feel like they want more information. Also, there will be employee meetings, which really is a twofold opportunity, both to address any potential misinformation, but also to listen to employees and answer their questions. Public presentations. These have already begun. TED has had a few already with some civic organizations, but we see great opportunity in meeting with other groups, other organizations, municipalities, decision-making bodies, and sharing information with their members. Toward the latter part of February into March, possibly April, Des Moines Waterworks will sponsor some open houses. And there will be 2 that will take place in person at community centers in various parts of the city. We're looking at buildings that are ADA accessible and have access to public transportation. One would be held over the lunchtime and another session would be held after work hours. And at these open houses, there will be stations set up with various employees present to answer questions. So for example, there might be a station about history. Des Moines Waterworks has a long, vibrant history, and letting people know that it's not going anywhere. A booth perhaps about customer service. Who will I continue to call if I have a customer service issue or a billing question? Another station about governance. How will good governance of Des Moines Waterworks look compared to Board of Trustees, or excuse me, compared to CIWW? There will be someone there to greet people when they come in and kind of share with them what's going on. And then we will also have a virtual option for individuals who are not able to attend or don't want to attend in person. And this will be more of a presentation style info session. When it comes to traditional media, there's tremendous value in keeping those lines of communication open. There's several reporters who tend to cover Des Moines Waterworks and have met with TED already, and will continue to meet with them to provide them accurate information and understanding on the topic as requested. Also, of course, opportunities to meet with editorial boards and even to find partners in the community to write op-ed pieces. We'll continue to release news releases along the way as we hit particular milestones. For example, when the governing agreement is ready to be released to the public, that would be an important thing to announce. When there's any vote to be taken place, announce that. We'll want to promote our public open houses. And all of this information is also going to go onto the website and be shared through social media as well. When it comes to social media, we'll continue to tell the story, just as we are with everything else that Des Moines Waterworks does, with the story of regionalization. Des Moines Waterworks, the first regional agreement was with Urbandale in the 1930s. Also showing how Des Moines Waterworks has assisted the entire metro community as a regional drinking water supplier. And we'll have some infographics, and I'll talk about a little bit more about that here in a moment, but it'll be important to have some visuals that we can share through social media on the structure and just how this is going to work. And those visual pieces can sometimes do that a little bit more than words can. And then finally, wholesale customers, periodic email updates, what's happening, very similarly to what we did last summer with the drought and when it was necessary to enact the water shortage plan. We'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you. There's a multitude of other materials and other resources that will help communicate efforts as well. As we've discussed this, we understand it's important to very specifically explain what CIWW is and how it operates both with and apart from the individual drinking water utilities and agencies. So we have interviewed, and we've got a graphic designer who is developing some visual content right now, just to help explain how the governance process will work and what CIWW is, what it represents to all the different entities. So these visual infographics will be available for use in presentations. We can use them in our open houses, in marketing materials, social media materials, however else Des Moines Waterworks wants, to use them. And then Ted alluded to this a little bit earlier, but it's important to show that CIWW is an entity on its own. It's not a branch, it's not an offshoot of Des Moines Waterworks. So there will be a request for a proposal for a separate public relations firm to promote and help brand CIWW. Once the time is ready for that, I will continue along with the other members of the Des Moines Waterworks communications team to work with this entity as requested, but our work will be on behalf of Des Moines Waterworks, not CIAWW. We also plan to utilize other like-minded entities and partners to support our message, such as environmental groups, drinking water agencies, associations in the state, and our urban water quality partners, the Botanical Garden, Science Center, Stowe Foundation, Waterworks Park Foundation, to help us by sharing our updates and information with them so that they may share them with their networks. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then just to kind of reiterate the importance of consistent messaging, this is a slide that Ted has been presenting and sharing with the public. It outlines those 3 main points that I discussed at the beginning. So, each presentation he gives is very clear on, these are 3 main reasons that we support regionalization. And all of our communications material needs to continue to share this so that we do stay on point with that message. And then with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have or turn this back over to Ted to answer questions. But thank you. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to be here today.
This is Diana. My question is I know that there is an RFP being put together. What's the relationship of our communications plan to a communications plan of the CIWW? How do they interact? Or, we have our talking points and those things, but I see overlap. So can you explain how you're seeing this working? Or maybe that's a question for Ted. Maybe he's talked to the other managers or.
Yeah, Melissa, I can take a swing at that if you don't mind. Clearly, we have messaging that we're going to do as Des Moines Waterworks with our direct retail customers, and they have concerns and questions and interests that may be different than some of the other communities. Many of the other communities are not producers. Some are. West Des Moines, for example, has been sharing the proposed benefits to them specifically. And we need to do that too with our customers to help them understand specifically how regionalization affects us. There's tremendous overlap though between what each individual entity is going to share with their constituencies and then what the benefits are from a regional perspective. And so the benefits slide that Melissa showed at the end where we're talking about best management of the water resources, financial equity and resiliency. Some of those things were even threaded through Graham's op-ed, and they're very universal in their application. And so what we want to do is create a very consistent message across all of the communities who are interested in participating so that there's sort of an understanding of what the global benefits are. And then each community can also share what the specific benefits to them are. So tremendous overlap and coordination, but we do think there's value in having a firm that's working for the collective group to share that global perspective.
So will there be a steering committee then for the overall communications plan, or how are you seeing that?
What we've done to this point, Diane, is we have shared the draft RFP with Urbandale and West Des Moines. And Jennifer and I have a meeting, I think it's tomorrow, to talk to them specifically about the RFP and make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what we expect from a PR firm, talk a little bit about the financing of this initiative. And then the vision there is that we would issue that RFP and then we would jointly make the selection in terms of who or maybe it's not a who, maybe it's a what, which organization would be selected. Then we would work together with them on the messaging for the regional perspective.
How about new communities that are going to, I know, is it Waukee that has this on there?
On the 7th of February, I believe they're going to consider the founding resolution. And From my perspective, it depends a little bit on when they come on board. And if it's that early in the month, there may be some opportunity. Frankly, we're trying to move this piece of it forward with the three entities that have been most involved. And think it's important to have something ready to go by the end of the month, when we hope to have the draft of the 28E complete, so that we can start doing some PR at that same time. So I don't think we can wait for them all to decide.
Yeah.
There'll certainly be opportunity for them to share perspectives if they decide, if they're early adopters.
Yeah, I think the messaging is going to be really important, that there's some consistency. And I understand that each community has a different, will have a somewhat different message on what the benefits are for their community. But the overall messaging of what's the value of this to the entity, to the metro at large, I think is, should be pretty consistent from place to place.
I agree. And we're trying to define that consistent message and share it with the group.
I also, I'll just mention this because I mentioned it to Ted, but I think that we have years of Water Academy graduates that I think would be really excellent to educate on this because of the background that they already have.
I did share that with the team, Diane, and it's on the list of audiences that we're going to reach out to. Any other questions for Melissa today? She said it. I think that this is a living plan. It'll likely change and flux, and we'll get input as we go along. And so this is certainly not a last opportunity, but if there are any other thoughts or comments.
Excuse me. I just wanted to thank you for your work on this, especially for, looking at those target audiences and including our staff and employees as part of those that need to be heard and information shared with. I think that's important. So I appreciate you catching that before we even brought it up. So good work.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question, if it's okay for me to ask one.
Please go right ahead.
Okay, I was just wondering to what extent the work that you have underway now, which includes some graphic representations of structure and things like that, if that might be shareable with the other communities, if there's plans for that. In other words, while we're still doing the RFP process for Central Iowa Waterworks, to what extent can we piggyback off of your work, if that's not too rude?
Yeah, the intent is to share and even allow input as appropriate in that process. But we have a real interest in having some infographics and something recognizable that we can share with our board initially to see what they think and get a sense of kind of the branding that we're going to have for this thing. And then certainly we would intend to share that with others for their use. I don't know if Jen or Melissa have more to say about that.
Ted, I would just add that the new, if this does go the way that we're hoping and we do secure a PR firm, the RFP calls for them to do a discovery phase where they would do a full discovery of what's going on, who the constituents are, all those things, and then they would come up with the tailored campaigns and so on and messaging. So I won't say that the infographics that we're doing are a stopgap measure, but certainly the new PR firm, if that's the way we go, will probably have their own look and things. But yeah, once our board and everybody has a chance, I think it'd be fine to share because I think it's gonna be pretty cool. I have the draft of one sitting on my desk. So
Very good.
And just one last quick question. You mentioned having those two open houses, a lunchtime and an after work, and you described kind of the places you're looking for. I missed the timing on that, when you thought roughly those were going to happen. Because we might want to coordinate with that.
Sure. Toward the end of February into March, possibly April. We're currently trying to schedule those right now, so it really just depends on when they're open and available.
Great, thank you. I'm sure I got a lot of other questions, but I'll leave you alone. This was great. Thanks for letting me listen in.
No, Pat, I appreciate it. And I think that your questions are right. I think it's important that we share information, between entities and between people. There's no pride of authorship here among what we've done at Waterworks. I mean, we'd like you to use it. We'd also like you to, we're interested in feedback from others, from you, about what works and what doesn't, and what's missing in the mix. So let's consider all this to be open source.
Sounds super, thanks.
And I just want to make sure you saw the comment that Jen put in there, Diane. Not only in addition to Water Academy graduates, we also have a plan to have local legislators invited to an info session so they can learn what's going on as well, Pat. So that will be something that will affect the whole entire region.
And obviously, this is a dynamic plan,
Sure.
as Melissa pointed out. I mean, I was at a breakfast club this morning on another topic, and they were very interested in having a discussion on regional water. I mean, I think those things are going to happen, and we need to do all of them in some way. So,
Ted, I would just jump in real quickly. Rachel Brown, in order to not like make steam come out her ears when she's trying to organize all of it. If you figure out someone or an organization that would like to have a presentation, if you could email me, and we are trying to capture all those because we want to be able to
Excellent.
report back to the board and leadership and all the employees how many of these we've done and which audiences we've covered. So we're just going to be tracking that. So if you have ideas on who we should contact or have an inquiry list, just let me know.
yeah, I think that's great, Jen, that there's kind of a central place where we can track these. I mean, that's going to help us to figure out what we're missing. What areas of the region we haven't talked to, or what groups we haven't talked to. So that's helpful.
The only thing that I can see when I look at it, and this is off the top of my head, is that we have a lot of opportunities for education, but I'm not seeing where the opportunities for input are. Do we have a place where people can comment, or, how, if you want to comment on this after you've been educated, think about it. How do we capture that, and where do we do that? And is that a listening session or something, or I don't know. Like I said, I'm thinking out loud. We're talking about getting information out. How do we get information back if people want to?
That's an excellent point, Diane. And I think what we should consider and think about this, and maybe we can visit on this again, but we probably need to have that as part of a board meeting or a special board meeting, where people can come and talk to us about that, and do it in a formal way through a board meeting. I like that idea.
Well, I don't want to do it until we've had a lot of opportunity for education, so people have a chance to think about it and see what we're doing.
Graham, I would say multiple board meetings. I think we need to make ourselves available multiple times. And Diane, I hear your point, though I'm eager to give those opportunities for folks to give input sooner than later. So I think we'll have to balance those.
I mean, you think about the timeline, the rough timeline that's out there. We're going to release this draft agreement here shortly, hopefully, and then there'll be discussions in all the communities kind of now and through June in the summer. Probably starting later this spring, we could probably have a portion of our May meeting, our June meeting, our July meeting, and even our August meeting where we invite people to come and speak. And we could even, if we wanted to, we could even ask specific groups that we've talked to. And I'm just making this up, but we could ask the Taxpayers Association to actually report back to us, or ask another group to come back and present at a meeting. So I don't think we have to decide that now, but Joel, I like your idea that we do it at multiple meetings, and let's put those on the calendar.
I do want to mention one thing that we should do legally before the resolution to formally approve the formation will be to have a formal public hearing before the board. That will be one of the legal steps we will be following.
Would you suggest, Rick, that public hearing be, say, the month before we actually took a vote to vote on the to vote on the document? Are those two separate things, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think a month before or at the meeting, either one would suffice legally, but a month before might be a good thing.
I kind of think it is. I think, again, to kind of, that also pushes us. We can put that on, I'm just making this up, put the public hearing on the August meeting and then have the vote on the document itself at the September meeting. I kind of like the symmetry of that.
There's an element of real estate transfer here, and that's what calls forth the public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I know we need to have that formal public hearing to take care of the legal requirement, but I agree with what Joel was saying. I would really like to have input opportunities so that if there are things that people are concerned about or want to talk about, that we hear that sooner rather than the month before.
I agree. I think it's
We
an
don't know
excellent idea.
exactly what we need to educate people on until we've heard what their questions and concerns are.
Yep. Excellent points.
Yeah, and the team has talked about, as we begin to have the open houses and the virtual meetings, it will inform us on, how many more we need to have, and we can begin to have feedback sessions or opportunities at the board meetings, in April, as early as April, if we want, or even March. But we'll have a number of opportunities, and I'm confident there will be things that the public wants to share with us.
Melissa, will you think about that public comment period and maybe work on that calendar of, we build those into board meetings and there'll be time cut, set aside for that?
Yeah, we will add that in. Thank you, Diane. That's a great idea, Joel.
Yeah, and I know that there's constant monitoring of the social media sites because often people express things there that they don't express elsewhere. So
True.
We'll have to be carefully monitoring what people are talking about and questioning.
All right. Well, this is excellent work. I think this is a good start, and obviously something we need to pay close attention to and continue talking about. Are there any other comments or questions regarding this public information plan? I don't hear any. Melissa and the rest of the team, we do appreciate this. This is excellent work.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa and Jen.
As I tried to start our meeting earlier and missed over the most important part, but I was corrected. Luckily, we can come back now. The next piece of our meeting is a potential closed session, and this series as a series of meetings we've had recently to discuss a potential 28E. I'm looking for a motion to go into a closed session based on 4 sections of the Iowa Code. The first being Iowa Code Section 388.91 to discuss marketing and pricing strategies and proprietary information that may impact Des Moines Waterworks' competitive position by public disclosure not required of potential or actual competitors related to ongoing negotiations over creating an integrated regional water authority. Each of these topics should be discussed in closed session to avoid disclosure likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of Des Moines Waterworks. The second is Iowa Code Section 622.10 to request and receive legal advice from retained legal counsel and to avoid waiver of the attorney-client privilege. The third is Iowa Code Section 22.765 to review a tentative and preliminary draft prior to completion of the 28E agreement. And finally, Iowa Code Section 21.51A to discuss or review records which are required to authorize or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential. Is there a motion to go into a closed session based on what I just read?
I'll move.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
I have a second. Any comments or questions on this before we take a vote? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we're gonna log out of this Zoom room. We're gonna go to another room. We will come back to this room on or about 5 o'clock, but we do not anticipate to take any public action at that time. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you in the other meeting room. All right. Joel's audio is connecting. This is the second part of the February 1st, 2022 Board of Waterworks Trustees special meeting. We've been in a closed session. We've just come out of closed session. We don't have any action to take. Is there any business anybody has to offer? Comments, suggestions? Seeing none, I think we can consider this meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.